But FYI, here at Trinity, before we get into the sermon, we have what's called a Worldview segment. And the reason we do a Worldview segment is we believe, as a church, we exist as a spiritual intersection where moral, cultural, social, political, economic issues collide with biblical truth. And we base this moment on a verse of scripture out of the Old Testament, 1 Chronicles 12:32, which says, the sons of Issachar had wisdom regarding the times in which they live, and they knew what they should do. So today, we believe Christians should be able to discern the times in which they live for two reasons. You need to be informed to know how to pray, so that number two, you can be empowered to act. Peter said in Acts 2:40, you're to save yourself from this wicked, twisted, perverse generation. So not only are we to save ourselves, but others. And as times get tougher, sermons can't keep getting weaker. So I want to talk about morality. In 2 Chronicles 28:19, it says, for the Lord brought Judah low. The Lord did this. He brought the nation of Judah low because its leader, Ahaz, the king, had encouraged moral decline. You know, as a leader goes, so goes a nation. Not just the morality of the people in the nation, but one person can lead a nation down because they are not supporting moral standards. Now, not all leaders are necessarily moral. We all have weaknesses and flaws, but they need to be able to stand for moral matters, moral issues, such as the protection of the unborn, the definition of marriage, and religious freedom. So one person can bring a nation low. That's what was happening in the history of Israel, which tells us what? Many things. First of all, that morality matters. There needs to be a voice of morality in a nation, and we need to be that voice of morality, not in a condemning, belittling way or judgmental way, in a loving way, but in a firm way, compassion with conviction. We must speak the truth in love. Because listen, what separates animals from humans is our morality. Animals do not make moral choices, right? They are instinctual ones. They make a choice based on instinct, how they are designed and programmed. So philosophers like Plato and Immanuel Kant, they believe that humans achieve morality when reason regulates passion. Not passion regulating reason, but reason, logic, rationale. This is right, this is wrong, a moral compass that guides us. That's what separates us from the animals. However, research by evolutionary biologists, they suggest that people instead use reason to justify prior moral intuition. In other words, the Nazis used corrupt reason to do immoral acts. But you're to use reason and logic to do moral acts, not immoral acts. For example, we all know that incest is immoral and sinful. Even the world, which trends are even changing in that arena, even the world knows that it's wrong. Why? They don't believe in God, or they reject the claims of God or the values of the Bible. They know it's wrong because of logic and reason, because of the human ability to say that is immoral. So Thomas Aquinas, he was a philosopher and theologian in the 13th century. And he talked about eternal law and natural law. There are two types of laws. There is eternal law, divine law, and then there's natural law. So eternal law is God's rationale for his commandments, for how he defines right and wrong, and he has his divine purpose behind all things in the world he created. That's eternal law. Natural law is law that's based on reason. It makes sense. It's rational. It's logical. And Thomas Aquinas says that's what separates us from rats and rocks, because we have the ability to determine this is right, this is wrong, moral law inspired by eternal law. Now, sometimes human law is moral. Sometimes human law is absolutely rational, logical, compelling, and we should obey. For example, no one should speed at 70 miles an hour in a school zone. There should be a law that says 15 miles an hour for the safety and the greater good of the children. We all say that is a moral law. Even though it's a human law, it's a moral law. But in Saudi Arabia, it used to be against the law for women to drive. So we would say that human law banning women from driving is not a good thing. It's way too quiet in here. I think some men are thinking, you know what, that might be a good law if we pass that in America. No, it's immoral, right? So the difference between eternal law, human law. Sometimes human law can be eternal, and sometimes human law can be immoral. Now, why is morality essential? So you can't talk about morality without quoting C.S. Lewis, right? So C.S. Lewis observed that many people, for morality, they feel as though, and I'm quoting, something that interferes, something that stops you from having a good time. In reality, he said, moral rules are directions for running the human machine. That's in Mere Christianity, page 69. We all love that. We all love C.S. Lewis and his argument for morality. C.S. Lewis uses an analogy asking his readers to imagine that human beings are like a fleet of ships in formation. So get in your mind's eye, a fleet of ships in formation. A successful voyage requires three things. Number one, all ships must stay out of each other's way or they will collide and you'll have confusion, chaos, and loss of life. So we have eternal law and natural laws in order to make sure we stay in formation. Things that are right, things that are wrong, rules that the game is played by. For example, we have traffic laws, we have white lines, we have intersections, stoplights, and stop signs, and all of that. That's because if we're going to reach our destination safely, we have to all follow formation. Number two, all these ships, in this imaginary metaphor, all the individual ships must be seaworthy, everything working in proper order. So we need families, we need businesses, we need churches, we need governments, we need municipalities, we need institutions to all work for the greater good of the whole, because if the ship isn't seaworthy, it's going to sink. And families are sinking, businesses are sinking, churches are sinking, society is sinking because we don't have seaworthy vessels. And the third thing that C.S. Lewis argued that we need, and the reason that morality is important, is because the fleet of ships must be on its proper course. If they mean to go to New York and they end up in Calcutta, something has gone terribly wrong. So we all need a playbook. We all need a port that we're headed towards. We all need to have cultural unity, and we all need to share the same values. It's borders, language, culture that defines a country, that defines a nation. To remove those, disrupt those, you just have everybody doing their own thing. And the sad thing about America is we've become a very hyphenated country. We have Mexican Americans, Italian Americans, French Americans, African Americans. Why can't we just all be Americans, one nation, united under God, right? And we used to be that way, but we veered from that. And that's why we are in danger.